Welcome to another TDM discussion.
Alright, so the Department of Defense is requesting, or rather, President Trump is requesting for the Department of Defense $686 billion, with a $597 billion for the base budget, with an additional $89 billion for overseas contingency operations. So this is an $80 billion increase, or a 13% increase from last year. Now, what he has outlined in the budget proposal is a number of things. There's a lot of things here, and I'm just going to go over them real quickly. So the first bullet point is to preserve peace through strength. I really don't think I have to say much on that because that just sounds ridiculous. The second bullet point is compete, deter, win. And then there is build a more lethal, resilient, and agile force for great power competition. Now, within this bullet point, he outlines 3 more bullet points about what he means by lethal, resilient, and agile. So lethality, he refers to the budget invests in a variety of new weapon systems capable of delivering lethal fires in a contested domain, while simultaneously developing leap-ahead systems that would enable the joint force to operate in new ways to defeat aggression in the future. So, in short, lethality, he wants to invest in new types of weapons. That's basically what he's saying. So resilience, he's saying that he uses the metaphor, a powerful punch is meaningless if married to a glass jaw. That really basically sums up what he means by resilience. And then lastly, agility. He's basically saying that the U.S. has to be able to address multiple different crises at once, multiple different situations, multiple different contingencies at once, rather than just using all of its focus on one thing. So the rest of what he says, and there's a couple of these things that I'm actually okay with, and a lot of them I'm just kind of like, whoa. So I'll give more details on that when I get to them. So ensures the readiness of the U.S. Armed Forces. That's fine. That makes complete sense. Sustains the defensive industrial base. Modernizes the nuclear deterrent. That scares the ever-living bejesus out of me. Invests in military hardware to meet the challenges of tomorrow. I mean, I guess. I mean, it depends what he specifically means by that. If he means by building more F-35s, then I am not okay with that. F-35s are just there's no point. We don't need them. The next bullet point is innovates at the speed of relevance. So then you just innovate more. I guess is what he basically means. I didn't really see much on that. It just kind of said innovates at the speed of relevance. So I don't really know what to tell you there. Grow the military? Do we really need to grow the military? Invest in innovative defense intelligence capabilities. Bolsters missile defenses, which I think that's fine. Defending against missiles is totally fine with me. It's better to have it than not to have it, especially considering the situation we have in North Korea. And I don't think that we actually know what their actual capabilities are. For all we know, they could only be able to reach the bottom of Japan. They just lie a lot. Or for all we know, they could reach Florida. I don't know. Another one, which it depends how they go about it, and if they go about it the right way, then I'm all aboard. But of course, if they do it the other way, the way that we've done it in the past, it's just not going to work. Prevents the resurgence of ISIS, Al Qaeda, and other jihadists, such as the Taliban. Now, I mean, if we're just going to create more power vacuums, ain't going to work. We're just going to create something even worse than ISIS somehow. And then promote the stability and security in South Asia. Renews the nation's leadership and freedom of action in space. Prioritize cyber activities. Now, this is the one that I actually like. The next one, I do actually like prioritizing cyber activities. I think that's fine. because we're moving into a more digital cyber age. So there's no reason why the Department of Defense shouldn't get on board with that. But the next one is one I really like, assuming that they actually pull through with it, and that's improving TRICARE. My understanding is that TRICARE is essentially just the healthcare that military people in the military get, which, if they're going to improve TRICARE, I mean, if they mean actually improve and not just privatize, then sure, I'm totally on board with that, 100%. Then I only have a couple more bullet points. So there's one that says provides fair compensation for service members and supporting military families. 100% on board with that. I have no problem with that. It reforms the department to reinvest resources in warfighter priorities, and then audits the department. Now, the three that pique my interest the most is they're towards the end, which was the improved TRICARE, which I already talked about. Provides fair compensation for service members and supporting military families. I have no problem with that. I assume that you don't either.
Of course not. I'm all for paying actual members of the military more, and in fact think that should be a larger portion of the military's budget.
Yeah, it completely depends. Like my actual praise of it depends on how much of this budget increase goes towards these things. Because if it's just like, oh, we're putting $500 million towards TRICARE, like, you could put more. You could put more. And like, oh, we're only putting $25 million towards compensating service members. Like, really? But those are made up numbers. But I'm just giving that for like a.
Yeah, it's all based on the percentage of the whole budget for the military.
And then the last one is auditing the department. I'm okay with that, because if I don't know if you remember it, I'm sure you do, but I think it was either last year or 2016, or possibly before, but it was in the last couple of years. The Pentagon, otherwise known as the Department of Defense, they lost, I really want to say it was like $5 billion or something.
Oh yes, I do remember.
They just lost it. Like, it was gone. They couldn't find it. So if they're going to audit the department to find stuff like that, then I have no problem with that. And you know what? Quite frankly, clearly they don't need that $5 billion. They just lost it. They don't need it.
Now,
take it out of their budget. They don't need it.
In response to some of the things you have said, there's three things I would like to say. First and foremost, as I had mentioned in my discussion of NASA, $1 input to NASA equaled $2.60 economic output. In that same study done, $1 put into the military equaled $2 economic output. From a purely fiscal point of view, increasing the military's budget and decreasing NASA's budget is actually a bad investment. From a purely fiscal point of view, we're not taking into consideration the countless other things besides fiscal and economic output that is the reasoning behind why you would invest money into the military. As well, I would also like to say, in response to my discussion of the State Department and your discussion of the Department of Defense, Teddy Roosevelt once said, walk softly and carry a big stick. I am all for a more powerful military, but you have to be able to keep up the other aspect. The military is the big stick. Walk softly, that's the State Department. That's the State Department's ability to keep diplomatic action and diplomatic peace amongst the nations, so that you only need that big stick at extreme emergencies. And my third point had to do with the audit specifically. And I had once a while ago, and I would have to dig up the actual source of this, but it was an interview I had heard between some military contractors. And they had claimed that they had to arrive at a base in the Middle East for their job. First off, these military contractors got paid almost triple what a enlisted member would actually get paid for that job, which to me is absurd. But they got paid almost triple. They show up to the base. When they show up to the base, their security clearance has not yet gone through. So even though they're on the base, they can't technically go to work yet. They can't start their job. So they spent somewhere around the first 2 months waiting, not doing their job, but getting paid triple what an enlisted member would those 2 months. And on top of that, he had a very specific story about his time spent at that base that really rung with me. Essentially, a printer, it was a printer ran out of ink, and they currently had no ink for the printer on the base. The requisition officer, which I believe is the correct term, he was informed about this and simply told the contractor it would be easier at this moment to toss the computer, or not toss the computer, toss the printer, claim it was broken, buy a whole new printer, and get the whole new printer in. And I can't claim the validity of that, seeing as how A, it was an interview, and B, it has been a while since I heard that interview. But if anything even close to that is happening, I am all for 100% an audit of the Department of Defense.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it makes complete sense. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't. I feel like that we should audit all of the departments. Like, I don't think there's a reason not to. Except maybe cost, but it depends. I mean, I guess it depends how much it would cost. Like, if it costs like billions upon billions of dollars, then fine. Like, only audit the ones like the Department of Defense, the Department of Commerce, or something. I don't know. Pull one out of the hat. I don't know.
And I forgot one more point. I remember I was listening to some previous Bernie Sanders speeches, but specifically from older Bernie Sanders, from like 1990s, somewhere around there. And it was a speech he gave to Congress. And he directly asked many members of Congress upon it was some agreement to increase the military's budget. He directly asked them, who are we fighting? What is this budget for? The Cold War is over. Soviet Russia is no longer as large of a threat as it was, Russia nowadays. We do not have a threat at the same level as which we did during the Cold War. The need for a military that is not just capable of fighting the wars that we do currently, but the military we have now is capable of fighting grand-scale wars. Now, I'm not saying we don't need the ability to prepare for that. What I'm saying is we don't need the constant maintenance of a military, something like the total cost of so we are the largest military budget in the world. The 7 below us in cost, if you put them together, equal ours. We don't need that large of a budget. Not when we aren't currently at war with them.
Not only that, but I believe, actually, I think it was 12.
Yeah, it may have been larger.
I think it was 12. It was either 7 or 12, but that's neither here nor there. It's still ridiculous either way. But I believe almost all of them, except for like 1 or 2 of them, were our allies.
Yeah, the only ones you really couldn't count are China and Russia, and even then, I would only worry about Russia at this point.
I don't even, and even then, I don't think we're in
either
of us would want to go to war. I really don't think so.
Russia is more ready for cyber warfare than they are direct warfare.
It seems like it. Like, I think the only country that we're close to going into war with, in any sense of the imagination, is North Korea. And I honestly, unless something just erupts in the next 2 or 3 years, I don't see that happening anytime soon. Simply because of the fact that in the past couple of days, things have been sort of simmering down a little bit. Like if it was at boiling point, if it was at 100 degrees Celsius, and now it's at like 99 degrees. If that metaphor makes any sense.
It does.
So, I don't know. I don't really think. I don't think there's another need for it. I mean, sure. I mean, we were fighting ISIS, but ISIS is almost dead. Like, they have very little land left. If you've looked at the maps, they have very little land left. I believe it's like a little. I think it's a couple square miles in like Syria. I think.
As you said, you were speaking about the F-35 program and how you disagreed with further purchases of F-35s. An F-35 has no strategic value to the war against ISIS.
Of course not.
A stealth fighter designed to be able to fight with other major nations of the world has no strategic value towards the battle with ISIS.
Yeah, and I don't... And in terms of that, like, again, the only possible nation that we would go to war with right now is North Korea that I could think of. And I don't... I'd be surprised if North Korea had stealth fighters. So, I mean...
Well, for me, that wraps up everything I had to say about that department.
Yeah, let's move on to the Department of Education. This is